certainly what is here and evolving at the moment is an unlocking of what we accepted as innate aging, extrinsic aging, which is normally considered to be environmental aging due to sun, but is also things like pollution and your own internal sort of combustion engine.
Professor Goodman, this has been a long time coming, and I could not be more delighted than to host you on the Ageless by Rescue podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bart. It's Drew. You finally tracked me down.
When I saw you at the ASCD conference in Melbourne, it was like I was in the presence of derm royalty. You have a rock star vibe that follows you. Everyone was trying to get photos with you. Everyone was trying to pin you down for an interview.
It was frantic. I must say it was an impossible situation there. But,
It was my first attendance of that conference, and I absolutely loved it. I was really honoured to be invited as a media guest to the event. And I have to make a little confession, and I hope that this doesn't come off the wrong way. I did not ever imagine dermatology to be as exciting a field as it is until I attended your conference. I guess I had it in my head that I would always seek dermatological advice and see the profession as the most sober, as the most conservative realm of medicine when it comes to anti-aging. But what I saw at the conference was actually pioneering, spearheading technology, very much embracing new science. And there was a lot of excitement in the air.
Yeah, no, there always is at the ACD. To be fair to dermatology, it's a broad church. There are the elements that you talked about, the sober, sedate, kind of traditional dermatologist. But, dermatology's always been a changing animal. Parts of it are very procedural nowadays. And, for example, I'm a micrographic surgeon for skin cancer, and, I do all that sort of thing. But in the elements in the cosmetic world, we probably impart the science that everybody hinges themselves on. For example, I know that you want to talk about regenerative medicine today. If you look in the literature, besides the raw scientists, the clinicians in the field are all going to be dermatologists in the research arena. So you will see a lot of that. You talk about such incredible people in the past as Kligman, who invented the Kligman's formula, and which is still the standard bleaching preparation that we still use.
And just for anyone who's listening who's a consumer, the Kligman's formula is, as you said, a standard bleaching preparation. So it brightens pigmentation. It could treat melasma. It's a treatment that has hydroquinone in it. And when prescribed correctly, it can be actually the most effective treatment of melasma.
Yeah. He also worked out retinoic acid, which is the strongest form of vitamin A. He was the one that worked out the science. And then John Voorhees, who took it a step further, and Sheldon Pennell, who worked out antioxidants, and or other dermatologists like forgotten his name, Eugene. It will come to me in a sec. Who worked out hydroxy acids? Eugene Van Scott, who worked out hydroxy acids. Most of the pioneers in skincare, despite the fact you might have some celebrity who thinks that what they've worked out from a trip to the moon has been what's revolutionised skincare, most of the true revolutions in skincare have been done by dermatologists. And, I think that the science is really imparted by them. So I think it's a fantastic field, and it's growing. I mean, the cosmetic dermatology side of it is growing, and the ASCD is just a manifestation of that. We try to bring all the science, and our ethos at the ASCD is to bring dermatological science to the broader community, and that's really what we do.
One of the things that I would love to share with my audience, and I like to do this with every expert that comes on the show, is to explain what the level of study and qualifications are to become a specialist dermatologist. Because I think that when you understand just the depth of knowledge that a specialist dermatologist can impart versus, Googling something or listening to someone who's a social media influencer and then running down to the store and purchasing highly active skincare, it will really change your mind. You really have to understand that the source of information really affects the outcome of your results, right?
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, I often hear somebody say, I see my other skin specialist and talk about the beauty therapist down the block, that they're perceiving that I'm similar. And, maybe that's true, but but if you want to know the level of commitment you have to make to be a dermatologist, the average dermatologist spends 6 years in medical school, a couple of years usually or usually now 3 years in hospitals, then does at least 4 years in dermatology. Often people have done a PhD. I've got a doctorate in acne scarring, for example, which is another, 2 or 3 years. Then they may go on like a micrographic fellowship, which is a year and a half in skin cancer surgery. And then you may do other degrees, like I've done a graduate diploma in clinical epidemiology and biostatistics, for example, so I can understand studies better and do my own studies better.
And you have an audit for Australia. Let's not forget that incredible achievement as well for your contribution to dermatology.
Yeah, I do, yeah. And so, I've got an AM for in 2021, I think.
You do. Mm. So in light of that context, let's talk about the future of skin. And we could start with what you introduced into our conversation, which is the field that I'm so excited about, is regenerative medicine. And I would love to hear a professor of dermatology's take on what's coming, what we have, and what you're most excited about.
Okay, well, that's probably 3 different topics, but certainly what is here and evolving at the moment is an unlocking of what we accepted as innate aging, genetic aging. And, we used to think that there was extrinsic aging. Intrinsic aging, that's true. Intrinsic aging is the inside of your forearm, skin-wise. It's kind of pale, slightly wrinkled, maybe a few age spots on it, but really not anything more exciting than that. Whereas extrinsic aging, which is normally considered to be environmental aging due to sun, but is also things like pollution and your own internal sort of combustion engine toxins that aren't being well handled. All that sort of stuff was considered to be part of controllable aging, whereas intrinsic aging was thought to be something as it's bad luck. That's what you dealt. And to some extent that's true. But, there are some interventions now that in the intrinsic aging pathway that are finding good solid legs. You might have heard of things like DNA repair enzymes and telomere protection and SIRT1 genes and things like that. And basically what people are finding that they can modify what people have to go through as normal part of the aging process. And to put that in kind of layman's terms, I suppose, and this is one of the more exciting areas, I think, the DNA repair functions. DNA is dealt blows by toxins that are released. I'll use the internal combustion engine of your body as an example. Every time you take a breath, you're adding oxygen into your system. And that oxygen's fine, except that it acts as a toxic byproduct because it's taken into your system, it's put through your cells' metabolic pathways, and it's required. Obviously, we can't live without oxygen for very long, but it's required. But it's like gasoline at the moment, maybe won't be for very long, but gasoline is required to get your engine to move too on your car. But it does produce exhaust fumes, and so does oxygen produce exhaust fumes such as hydroxy radicals and superoxides and oxygen tripartite chemicals and singlet oxygens and various other things. So we have a situation where you're producing these toxins that have to be detoxified. And what happens if you don't detoxify them? That's where Sheldon Pinnell's work came with antioxidants, that if you haven't got enough of your own antioxidants, which we don't really, then the vitamins and various other things are added into the mix, and you can actually supplement the outside with outside antioxidants. And you can do that through plant antioxidants, or you can do it through the vitamins, vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin C. So that's all great. But if you don't do that, then these things tend to these toxic byproducts tend to want to find a home and the home can be neutralised by the cell wall of the cell, killing off the cell wall, or they can be detoxified by impacting on the DNA of your molecules and causing problems. Now, a lot of the things, obviously, besides that, like the sun can interact with DNA directly and cause these problems as well. But the end result is kind of the same. You've got this potential for destroying your DNA. And your DNA has this capacity to say, whoa, that was a bit of a hard hit. I'll go and recruit my normal DNA repair enzymes to help me. But lately we've found that you can actually mimic that by using DNA repair enzymes from extraneous causes, even plankton, for example, from the sea. So you've got this situation where you can use these protective enzymes
in skincare?
to boost
Are you talking about
skincare.
this?
Yeah, you can use it in skincare. You can probably use it orally too, but you can use it in skincare. So, this is a major advance because you can supplement your own body's ability. So you want to obviously not get to that. So you want to use your sunscreens, you want to use your antioxidants, you want to use all that sort of stuff, and your DNA repair, your vitamin A repair things and all that sort of thing. But if all proverbial hits a fan, you want to be able to use something that will repair you. And so this whole area is burgeoned. The other area that burgeoned is kind of similar but different, again related to DNA, where you've got, you imagine shoelaces with little plastic nibs at the end, and the shoelaces are your chromosomes, your DNA molecules in every cell, and the shoelace at the end, things called telomeres. Now, telomeres are there so that your cells can, your DNA can like twiddle and produce another strand, and the other strand can replicate. And then the telomeres let go, and each time the telomeres let go, they lose a little bit of that telomere. They lose a little bit of that plastic nib at the end of the shoelaces. Until such times you've got no plastic nib left, and then your DNA can't repair and the cell has to die. So what's happening now is that the telomere protection devices, resveratrol, Japanese knotwood, physostigmine, all these agents are kind of coming to the fore, which can actually protect those telomeres from having to be lost each time your cell divides. Now, that's good and bad because some cells are meant to die, and you don't want necessarily to hang, like me, on an old cell living forever. You kind of want them to go eventually, old dermatologists thinking to the West. But you probably do want them to hang around for as long as possible, especially if they're not really sick and not really dying, but their telomeres are just shortened progressively because of situations they may find themselves in metabolically.
So are you saying that in both cases, in both examples, skincare has now been developed and clinically tested and validated as being able to assist in both these aging mechanisms?
Yeah, there's been a fair bit of research in them, and to be fair, I think the research is reasonable. I think that that certainly we've shown that DNA repair enzymes can be added, and that's been since the late 90s probably. And there's a couple of skin conditions I bore the people with, but there's a couple of skin conditions that you get premature DNA damage, that they don't have these DNA repair enzymes genetically. And if you actually add these DNA repair enzymes topically, you can actually get those people to decrease their rate of cell death and cell neoplasia, which is the other thing that they get, which is skin cancers. So there have been this research quite widely. Telomere protection, definitely. There's a whole lot of, because there's good and bad things.
I take resveratrol supplementation. I take metformin as a supplement for telomere protection and regenerative medicine. And I definitely have noticed, I've been taking metformin and resveratrol now for maybe 4 years. And I'm 50 now. And I recently looked at photos of when my daughter was about 1, so I was 37. And I can guarantee you I look younger. My skin looks younger. I might not look younger because I've had, bone density loss and, changes to my facial shape. But my skin definitely looks better because of the skincare that I'm using and definitely from the supplementation that I'm taking. And so I've seen it on myself that you can change the hand that, you've been dealt.
So, this is a couple of examples. There are probably many others. And metformin, for example, is one of my favourite preparations, both topically and orally. Topically has been shown.
Topically?
Yeah, metformin's been shown, a few papers, but 30% metformin's been used for pigmentation disorders, and it's been used in anti-aging preparations as well. In fact, I won't say too much because they're prescriptions, so I can't actually talk about them, but we're working on that sort of thing for topical use.
I want to ask also in the regenerative medicine sphere, particularly on topical treatment, is the exosomes. And again, the first time I interacted with this topic in a meaningful way was at your conference. And a number of the speakers talked about it in regenerative medicine and also for hair regrowth as well. And I'm wondering if you've had any experience with it, if you see this as a promising field for regenerative medicine and beauty.
Yeah, look, I see it as a promising field. I think if you're talking about not enough evidence, I think exosomes are where that epitaph belongs, because it's just not quite enough evidence yet. But it's a burgeoning field, and sometimes, unfortunately, especially areas that are relatively unregulated, the usage comes before the evidence, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's necessarily the wrong way around. If people vote with their feet, in other words, they think that exosomes are useful, then they're useful. I mean, there's a lot of protein expression that is crucial in how you age. And it's not just a matter of fixing up the DNA, not just a matter of fixing up the RNA, but what happens for the uninitiated DNA replicates, produces RNA, which is and then the RNA, which is like the DNA, but it's a single strand of genetic material, goes on to produce proteins, and the proteins can be, so you can make the RNA and the protein mix much more robust by telling the RNA to produce proteins, and that's what really exosomes and some of the weird stuff like salmon sperm stuff and that sort of thing.
Which I've also had. And I have to say, I'm a massive fan.
I think they seem to work pretty well, but it's going to be very hard to show the science behind these. And in fact, there is at the moment papers missing all over the place to show the science. The more that something is placed kind of topically where you're not going to get photographic evidence particularly, and you may not even be able to get reproducible kind of device evidence like infrared photography or spectrometry or basically anything, photometers. You may not see the changes with these agents, but people feel that their skin looks better. And that's what you get with exosomes, and that's what you get with, I say trade name, but salmon sperm extracts, and that's what you get with umbilical cords.
I've tried that too, I have to say. I think
they're very good.
Citizen scientist. That's what I'd like to. I always think my listeners and my viewers are so interested and fascinated by the science in a safe way. And that's why I always like to have an expert on the show to kind of.
I think you sound like a beaker of a whole lot of polyglottic chemicals, but
I'm pretty sure if you shake me, things will come. But I am committed to this. I'm really committed to the science of cellular wellness and aging well. The other topic that I think is exciting, and again, I've tried on myself, so I have a level of personal interest. And when I try things on myself, I tried things on myself for a really long time. As I said, metformin and resveratrol, I've been taking for an NAD. I've been taking for about 4 years, very consistently. And the other thing I've been trying, and I've tried now for 2 months consistently, is skincare that is biome protecting. And rather than having the actives that I have normally used, like the A's, the C's, hyaluronic acid, niacinamide, this doesn't have any of those actives, and instead has a complex that kind of reintroduces probiotics to the skin and then lets the biome repair itself. And again, I have to say, it's been a really interesting ride because I had no sensitivity. My skin did look better. My doctor said my skin looked better. I had no rashes. And my skin didn't miss the actives that I'd used before, which I was quite addicted to. I thought not using vitamin A for 2 months, I was going to see a rapid decline in my skin quality, and it wasn't the case at all.
Yeah, no, I've done a fair bit of work on microbiome just recently, actually, for another project. Look, the microbiome in the skin, got 20 metres of skin that the microbiome can sit on. including all the hair follicles and the sweat glands and various other things. So it's second only to the gut, and its gut's about 25 square metres of microbiome space. And the gut and the skin talk to each other. You can imagine, I mean, obviously the gut ends here and the other end, and the skin kind of it's a continuum, really. And you do have enormously friendly microbiome. In fact, we couldn't exist without it. We'd be absolutely savaged by nastier bugs and things like that. So
I remember reading an article that you contributed to about, skin health during the pandemic and all the washing and all the disinfecting we were doing. And you talked about protecting the biome of the skin in those articles.
Now, I think the microbiome of the skin deserves respect. Us as dermatologists, we're, like Jekyll and Hyde, we sit there and we plaster people with antibiotics for acne and things like that, and rosacea and various other conditions, and we expect the microbiome to bounce back. But, it's problematic sometimes, just what we do with the skin. But the other side of us is very cognizant of the microbiome. Obviously the microbiome requires first and foremost that the structure of the skin, the barrier, is absolutely maintained. And to maintain an adequate barrier means a number of things. It needs cohesiveness of the stratum corneum, the top layer of the skin, and its oils in between, the ceramides and sphingomyelins and that sort of thing. But it also requires the skin transepidermal water loss, or water loss through the skin barriers, to be absolutely piggity-boo. It's got to be absolutely correct to provide the humidity and the pH that the skin microbiome needs. So the first step in microbiome control is to make sure that the skin itself is the absolute healthiest it can be. And then you can add in factors. You can add in live cultures. You can add in food for the microbiome. You can add in stuff to replenish the microbiome after it's been hit. There's plenty of opportunities, pro and post microbiome agents. And the one you're talking about is probably the C. acnes agent that they've isolated to add into the
well, it was Dr.
microbiome.
Hitchcock's.
And
he spoke at your event. Yeah.
So look, it is clever, and but then again, is that the ultimate? There's been a guess. That C. acnes thing looks okay. It's not the acne subvariety produces acne. It's a different variety. But is there better we can do? There are millions of bugs on us at different persuasions. To take one is a good guess, but who knows what else we need. So, and it's only just bacteria, as we know. There's yeast and there's viruses and there's protozoans and mites and all sorts of wonderful things that grow all over us. You wouldn't want to have a microscope and look at our skin surface. It'd be pretty horrible. But it is a great organ. It's probably our second, most important organ for dermatologists. The skin is first, but the microbiome sits on top of it is probably second.
Professor Goodman, speaking of playing citizen scientist and exploring novel approaches to skin rejuvenation, one of the topics that's really, really hot at the moment for women who are in menopause is using vaginal estrogen preparation as skincare. Mm-hmm. And there are two schools of thought on this. There are people who swear that this is the new holy grail of skin rejuvenation, that, used under the eyes, the forehead, and the nasolabial fold area. The same preparation that you would use as vaginal preparation, you could put on your skin to thicken up the skin, to improve the skin quality and density and anti-wrinkle. There are other people who say it's absolutely insane. Why would you use that preparation on your skin? And there's one or two brands out there that have got estrogen or estradiol as part of their preparation. What do you think of this kind of branch of dermatology and skincare for estrogen-depleted skin?
Well, it really does depend on whether people are menopausal or not, doesn't it? So that's the divide. And, look, I've been using estrogen preparations in skincare for 25 years. So, we've used them in our acne scarring creams for that long, a low strength of estriol. But lately I've been dabbling with using higher concentrations of estriol. I like estriol better than estradiol unless you're trying to get some hormone replacement out of the preparation you're using, because whether you use it on your vagina or whether you use it on your skin, you're going to get hormone replacement from estradiol. So especially in that concentration. So if you're after, hormone replacement, it's a bit unfettered, isn't it? I mean, you want to make sure that the same dose is being used. If you don't be putting, 10
I'm thinking
times.
more from a topical skincare preparation. Forget about HRT.
Yeah. So I wouldn't use estradiol because it's got too much absorption. But estriol I like. I think it's terrific, and it doesn't absorb into the skin. It's probably 10 times less effective than estradiol pound for pound, but it's a good preparation, and it is very good for skincare. And you can use phytoestrogens too. I think like Equol or some of the soy-based phytoestrogens are quite useful.
Are they all prescription medicines as well? Are we talking about something you have to go get a prescription for?
No, you can get some of the phytoestrogens without prescription. They can be used in skincare. I don't know if they are particularly, but I know I've got some of mine coming up. But certainly estriol, Equol is probably the most potent, and I don't think that requires a script either. Estradiol and estrone, and the three. And estrone is the main one used after that is produced after menopause, but that's pretty inert, and so it doesn't really help particularly. It's not a great topical preparation. As I said, I think yes, I totally concur with this. I wouldn't use your vaginal preparation, but I think estrogen in some description postmenopausally totally makes sense.
It brings me to the greater topic of there is just so much to understand. There's all this controversy at the moment about tweens and teens using highly active skincare that they can access, whether they walk into Sephora or Mecca or Priceline or Chemist Warehouse. They can help themselves to products containing AHAs, BHAs, vitamin A, vitamin C, which may be quite potent at certain levels. And that's the teens and tweens that maybe don't understand what they're putting on their skin is not the right thing. But for women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it's still confusing for us. There are so many, you hear that there are so many options. What do you recommend, truly recommend, is the best path forward for personalized skincare? I know you're passionate about good prescription for skincare, that it should be individualized, it should be monitored. What can we do as normal people navigating this path? Yeah,
look, I think that teens and tweens make good newspaper copy, but realistically, there's no reason they can't use skincare. So, I think, there's a bit of a beat up saying, how can they be using skincare and, But realistically, they just need to use skincare as appropriate. They don't necessarily have to use, retinoic acid 0.05%. They can still use vitamin A, but everybody's got to use what's age appropriate to some degree.
And concern appropriate, right?
Yeah, because absolutely concern appropriate.
At 11 and you might need vitamin A. So it's concern appropriate, not age.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Yeah, very good point. So I think the way that I've always kind of, I guess, espoused skincare is that it basically is all about concerns. Some people don't have any major concerns and they said anti-aging. So if anti-aging is the key, then this paradigm has never changed. It's always been simple, which is basically you've got to protect by day, repair by night. And if you subdivide that, protect is antioxidants and sunscreen. The rest is kind of guilt edge around the corner sort of thing, but they're the two major things because you really want to make sure the stuff doesn't get into a damaged situation during the day. Sunscreens aren't everything. They don't totally protect against UVA, visible light, infrared light, pollution, your own endogenous respiration in your cells. So you need antioxidants to mop up the thing that gets through that. And at night time, you repair, and that can be vitamins, vitamin A. It can be another antioxidant again to repair damage. But really, that's where the DNA repair enzymes, that the telomere protectors, all that sort of thing come in. But that's anti-aging principles and growth factors. They're all nighttime preparations because they're repairing. So that's intrinsically very simple. Concerns are different because concerns are the true role of what I consider active skincare. Yes. When you've got something that needs repair, needs total repair, not just daily repair, not just repair what happened during that day environmentally and all that sort of thing, but something that really needs a total repair package. And sometimes you need dermatologists or GPs or other health professionals treat medicinally or with devices or something like that. But many times don't. And I think that's where this weird divide area of cosmeceuticals lives, because cosmeceuticals are becoming so potent that the old thing about, you're allowed to do anything so it's not a drug, and you don't actually physically do something to repair, to actually make a difference to the skin, that was a dividing line between the drug and the cosmetic. And cosmeceuticals are in this gap area in the middle where they're actually doing something, but they're doing much more than they used to. So now we can actually look at a concern and say, okay, pigmentation, I've got things in my drawer coat, I might be able to do something with that. Redness, I might be able to do something with that. Acne scarring, I might be able to do something with that. Even menopausal skincare, I might be able to do something with that. So basically there are things you can do nowadays that are quite potent, but not in the drug field. And that's why you need to individualise, because somebody's got to say to you, well, so what is it about your skin that you want to fix? And if it's nothing, then go into the anti-aging category. But if it's something, then fix that up. And once it's fixed up, move on to the next thing. So basically it's concern orientated. And that's why I've always espoused with skincare. That's why I can't stand I've got a skincare that's right for everybody, for every skin concern, for every age and for every gender and, whatever. So I struggle with the universal concept.
Professor Goodman, what about the concept of layering, which has become really popular, and it's, come to us from international waters, let's say, that, multiple serums, multiple treatments, all at the same time. So, there are clinics that now come in for, say, the Rejuvenation, which is the salmon extract, salmon DNA treatment. And at the same time, we'll do tox. At the same time, we can do exosomes. And then they send you home with, multi-layered serums and treatments. And that seems to be the norm. Is that over-treating skin? And how do we know what's working?
Great questions. And I don't think we do know what's working sometimes. If it's scientifically based, in other words, as we were talking about before, you've got a concern, you're doing something, and each product has a raison d'etre, it's fine. But, sometimes, I'm moving the other way. I'm tending to, some of the stuff we're doing at the moment is using a polyglot of agents in the one preparation to treat skin concerns, but more of that later. But when I was with Bespoke, with Catherine Armour, and she now has Bespoke, but I moved out of that a couple of years ago, we had this concept of doing everything in a single cream virtually, like all the layers, if you like, in a single preparation, which it was quite good. It was called the night cream as the initial one, which was a terrific preparation. Layering, there's nothing wrong with layering. It's just there's two different concepts. I mean, if layering, each layer has a reason why you're delivering it, it's fine. Sometimes the skin needs a vitamin B3, a vitamin A, a vitamin C, a peptide, a growth factor, whatever. It might need lots of stuff. Or
every time you talk about something, I want to put all of it on my skin. And that I fall into the same category as most people who are skincare fans. Is every time I hear something, I go, oh my goodness, where can I squeeze that into my existing routine? All my mind is thinking throughout recording this podcast is, wait till I get my hand on some epidermal growth factor, and when can I squeeze it into the system?
Yeah, and that is to some extent what's happening, isn't it? But you don't want a situation where you're putting 10 things on your face and 10 in the morning and 10 things on your face and night time. But there's no particular reason why you can't layer 4 or 5 products. No dramas. You got to put them in the right order, obviously, or you have all sorts of issues with peculiar looking squiggle on your skin. But
I ask you, does it matter if they're not all from the same brand? Because obviously if you go to a counter, if you go to a clinic, they try to keep you within a range. But I like to cherry pick the best of the best from different brands, and my skin doesn't react poorly to that. But I guess I've never really asked the expert question. Is it okay to cherry pick from brands?
Yeah, look, I did before Script, I had a thing called Goodman Skincare. So I've always been interested in skincare, I think. Goodman Skincare basically was trying to, myself, find the hero products in every range. Because
can you send me the cheat notes?
No. It's 15 years old. It's 15 years old.
Hold on.
But it's true. Every product has a hero. Every range has a hero product, or hero products. There might be a couple of them. And the rest are fillers. The rest are not fillers as in we know fillers, but fillers as in fillers. They basically just add to the range. But, you can pick the hero products out of most ranges, or often you can. And it's fine to pick, different products from different ranges. There's no magic to, how ranges are put together. Just because one range had to have a serum and a cream and a lotion and whatever, an ointment or whatever, doesn't mean that if you've got something from another range, that you can't just pile it on top of them. As long as it's the same sort of base. So if you've got serums, you probably tend to plonk serums on top of each other. You've got creams, or lotions.
And then oils.
Yeah. And so basically there's a sequence of steps that you make, and usually we try to get the sunscreen on last in the morning, second last to makeup. At night time, you try very hard to use either your thickest preparation or your vitamin A if you've got serums as your last product. But there's a sequence that seems to be functionally okay. But as long as you're following that, you're trying to put a serum on top of a Vaseline or something, then you're fine.
Professor Goodman, one of the things that we're lucky enough from the industry to experience is that, every time we go to a major launch, particularly in cosmeceutical land, we get a proper and quite thorough skin analysis. So we might go under a lamp, we might go under a video machine, we might have 3D or 4D scanning to see the before and after results of treatments that we've had. And most consumers don't get that opportunity. And so talking to what we were saying before is it's kind of like do everything and have blind faith that one of the things or all of the things is going to land. What would you recommend, for a consumer that's listening to this who's maybe never had a thorough below the skin level? What would you recommend that we do? Is it worth having that clinical view of our skin once a year, twice a year? Where do we go?
Comes to me or you, I guess. But I think
I got sent a device, actually, an at-home device. Have you seen it?
No. Is that like a photographic device?
Yeah, so it scans your skin and then it tells you what your levels are. And then it also is a device that it's called Skin GP. I'll link it at the end of this. But it's really great. So it does like a little bit of a scan, tells you what your moisture levels are. And then it does an infusion. It's got light and radio frequency as well in it. So it's, I think the at-home devices are good. But what do you think? Is it worthwhile going to see a dermatologist or?
Well, we use Visier here, and we did in script stores and things like that. I think something like that is really useful. It does give you a quantitative, as numbers sort of thing to your skin. It tells you where your starting point is. We're doing a little project at the moment. We're doing Visiers and we're giving people a bit of skincare that we're working out, and 8 weeks later doing another Visier and seeing if it can show change. And in the pilot part of this, this is really a pilot, but it's a pilot part of this is we showed some significant changes on Visier. It is with decent skincare. It is something that is a sensitive enough device to show meaningful results. The only problem with cutometers and that sort of thing that you can do at home is you have to do it in the same area, the same region of your face. So that's sometimes a bit difficult for people to remember if they get trying to do 8 weeks later or something like that. And obviously the equipment that they're doing, the LED, the radio frequencies, et cetera, have to be so incredibly safe that they're probably a bit like your supermarket skincare. They're so safe that they're not doing very much. So,
that's what I was going to ask you. Should we be guided by how much something costs to determine the efficacy of a product? Or is it fair to say that there's some products in pharmacy land or supermarket land, even now in Australia, that is going to pack a powerful cosmeceutical punch?
Depends on the agent. To some extent, it's the expense of the ingredient itself. Like vitamin B3 is quite cheap, for example, so you can get quite easy preparations at a low cost. 10% vitamin B3, as long as it's formulated reasonably, is going to be similar to 10% vitamin B3 formulated a little bit better. So it's not really going to be hugely different because we know that particular agent is water and oil soluble. It tends to be, kind of easy to formulate, easy to work with. But, there are some ingredients. Resveratrol is a good example that are expensive. If you're getting a resveratrol from kind of a cheap source, you've got to wonder how that's possible, how that works. You got to think of ethical things like where is that product being produced? Is it being produced with slave labour and all that sort of stuff? Is it an ethically derived? Is it being made in Australia? Is it being made overseas? What controls it? Is there quality control? All that sort of thing. So sometimes the really cheap alternatives, you kind of saying, oh, not sure about that.
So what can we splurge on? What should we splurge on? What should we save on? The one product that's always on my mind with this is vitamin C, because there seems to be a lot of pharmacy products that speak to 20% vitamin C, 15% vitamin C. And, there's this whole new culture of dupes where people are saying this is a dupe for, SkinCeuticals being, I guess, the granddaddy of great vitamin C. And then another company will come out and say this is a dupe for C. feruli. Do we believe them?
To be honest, I think Sheldon Pinnell's company was SkinCeuticals, the guy that invented antioxidants.
I love that brand. I think it works.
And L'Oreal bought it from him for a substantial amount of money, I think. But so the C. ferulic is a compound that goes back to Sheldon Pinnell. What he found was that synergy happened between vitamin C, vitamin E, and ferulic acid.
And what's ferulic acid? Just for anyone who's listening,
it's a plant-based antioxidant.
Right.
So, to me, that's a great product. There's no doubt about it. And what Sheldon Pinnell also showed, that vitamin Cs are not created equal, a bit like Animal Farm. So vitamin Cs are a whole family of vitamin Cs, and you probably do not really want to get past the parent molecule because the other ones are really not terribly active. So when they say 20% vitamin C, you've got to make sure there's actually vitamin C ascorbic acid, not ascorbyl palmitate or whatever. So, you've got to make sure that you're equating apples with apples. And it is inherently unstable. It's very hard to stabilize ascorbic acid. They tensile.
It's really hard to use a preparation that doesn't give you a breakout. That's why, like with the SkinCeuticals one, and this is absolutely not sponsored, but definitely from trial and error, it's the only one that doesn't make me break out. It works, it brightens my skin, it really keeps my melasma under control, and it does not give me breakouts. Every other vitamin C I've tried, I'll get almost like blind pimples. Terrible.
Yeah, no, that'd be the formulation issue. So there'll be difficulties in keeping that stable. Probably their stabilizers and various other things are the things that are causing you to break out rather than vitamin C. But vitamin C is a harsh product. I mean, you don't have to use a vitamin C. It's a tough ask. It's one of the, like vitamin A, you don't really put on incredibly sensitive skin because vitamin C is quite irritating. And you have to keep it acidic. But if you don't keep it acidic, it doesn't stay as vitamin C. It becomes a fairly useless basic product that doesn't really do very much. So it is a hard preparation to work with. And so to me, vitamin C is a good example of you get what you pay for to some degree.
Good to know. To wrap it up, I would like to know if you were to look in your crystal ball, or rather the clinical work that you're doing now behind the scenes, because you are a prolific publisher of studies and papers. What is the most exciting thing on the horizon for skin?
I think prescription skincare. So to my way of thinking, I think we really need to build into the area, and obviously it's become a bit harder with TGA regulations nowadays that you can't advertise any prescription skincare, but we're on a podcast, so I guess we can at least talk about it in theory. Prescription skincare to me is the land that we want to land in tomorrow. Basically because there are things that are in the literature that are evidence-based but have not been brought to the table as yet, skincare. And stuff that's even orally or even, for example, used in kind of homeopathic sort of areas that just haven't been, things that haven't been thought of being brought into skincare. For example, metformin is a classic example we just talked about before. It's been trialled. We know that it kind of works, but nobody, there's no ability to take metformin into a skincare preparation and sell it at the chemist, or through a supermarket, or even you can probably sell it through practitioners. Yeah, but that sort of area to me is the next horizon, because you're starting to get a situation where you're maxing out a little bit with what we can get out of active cosmeceuticals, and then you kind of the appetite for getting that last or pinch won't necessarily be satisfied by the next vitamin C preparation or the DNA repair enzymes because, you truly have to repair, and probably you can't repair that well or optimally without prescription skincare. So that's to me, that's most exciting. That's what I'm working on at the moment.
Well, that was a conversation that I honestly could keep you on this link for another 2 hours. We didn't even touch on laser technology. So I feel like if you would be open to it, I would like to invite you back at some point to talk about technology in dermatology,
Sure.
because that was the other thing that I found absolutely fascinating at your conference. I want to reiterate that it completely changed my understanding of cosmetic dermatology. I had relationships with a couple of wonderful dermatologists that I'd met over the years, but the event really opened up the horizons of what is possible and how exciting it is to have experts who are really pushing the envelope, like you said, that are looking for what's next. So I want to thank you so much, Professor Goodman, for being on the show. I would love for you to develop that cheat sheet for us, if you would go back to it.
I think those products most of those products have either come and gone or we've gone past them.
Well, I think it's time for a 2024 update. Yeah. I will be your number one fan. I will distribute it to the world. But yes, once again, thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to have a luminary such as yourself on the show. When I launched the show 3 years ago, it was during the pandemic. I launched it from my living room. I just knew I wanted to have conversations that we weren't having around skincare. My background is in the beauty industry, and I had a great doctor. I had access to great experts, but no one was having those conversations for consumers. The conferences were amazing, but the consumer didn't get to hear that so much. The idea that I've now been able to have 200 episodes with some of the best experts in the world, and I've been trying to hunt you down for some time. This really has made my week. Thank you ever so much.
That was terrific. Thank you very much.